Well, if you've listened to me at all over the years, you probably know that I am a very proud graduate of the Memphis City school system. I grew up in Raleigh, went to Raleigh, Egypt, and then from there went on to Memphis State University, go Tigers, and then did some postgraduate work through Mississippi State. So I love our school system, but right now it is experiencing a bit of an identity crisis, and we're going to dive into that at a perfect time because we've got elections coming up. Hi, everyone. I am Joey Solopek. Thank you for joining us on The Current Temp. But first, before I do anything else, let me make sure I thank the men and women of Lexus for being partners with us. I cannot ever give you enough of a loving hug, Lexus, because you've got one of the best products on the market and phenomenal people, and we're just so glad that you're here with us as part of The Current Tip. And I'll tell you who else we're glad is here. This guy, Dr. Frederick Tappan. You have seen him before here on The Current Temp, and I don't know why I just went right past his slide there. He is the pastor for almost 30 years at Eureka True Vine Baptist Church, and as I was writing down his accolades, I realized introducing him may take longer than we've got to talk. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Dean of the Memphis Theological Institute, graduate of the Harvard Leadership Institute, maybe more key for this discussion, executive director of the Memphis Area Youth Association, and I'm just barely talking about the tip of the iceberg when it comes to him and the things that he does. And very soon, he's going to be running as an independent candidate for the Memphis Shelby County School Board, District 6, and he is totally plugged in. And so I thought this is a great time to get some insight and get some opinions. First of all, thank you for being here.
I am honored, and I am so honored.
You look fantastic.
I wore a bow tie.
No, you look fantastic.
In honor of the bow tie himself.
Listen, let me start with this board right here.
Yes, sir.
I did not know this. Memphis Shelby County Schools has on average about 100,000 plus kids, 105 to 110, and those numbers will fluctuate. Mm-hmm. Covers over 200 schools. That makes us
220 schools.
Okay, 220, which makes us, and I did not know this, Tennessee's largest public school district.
It
is. You, Dr. Tappan, are what I would call a community advocate and a youth advocate. So let's talk about this. I'm going to jump into it. We just recently had an audit, as you well know, a state audit. It's only 25% complete, I believe. It's still ongoing, but here's some of the highlights, or lowlights, I should say.
Yeah. Yes.
Over $1 million in waste or abuse found. That's contracts and payroll. An additional $1.7 million in policy violations. In other words, travel, ACH abuses, which is how money is wired. Over 175 internal control deficiencies. So we're going to say 175 goof-ups. And then you might not be able to read this thing at the bottom, so I've got yellow by it. And this is what it says. This is maybe the most distressing part. Overall, this is a quote from Tennessee Comptroller Jason Mumpower. There is an absolute culture of apathy and carelessness within the Memphis Shelby County school system. There is, at no level, an expectation that things are done right. That is staggering. And now we're going to end with this one, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, some numbers, some key metrics about our school system. An 83% graduation rate. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, that sounds pretty good to me. That's not good. 92% is the state average, and I would say we need 100%, first of all, right? English and language, 20% when it should be around 40. That's the state average.
Right. Exactly.
Math, 27% proficiency when it should be around 40. Science, the same. So all these numbers are just showing we are ranking about half of where we should be, and even that is pretty low. So we're talking about very low numbers, and this one really grabbed me.
That's the key.
27.4% chronic absenteeism when the state average is 19 to 20, which is also terrible. So in the city of Memphis, what you're looking at basically is between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 kids don't even come to class on a regular basis.
That's exactly right.
You've been around this block. You're tied into our community. You're running for a position. Where do we start? I mean, this is a big ask. Where do we start?
We have to start at literacy. We have, because that number is so tied into the rest of that child's life.
Explain that. You mean basic reading, writing, communication?
Reading. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is my inaugural statement. From kindergarten to 3rd grade, you learn to read. From 4th grade to 12th grade, you read to learn. If you are not reading, at grade level, by the end of the third grade, you have a catastrophe that could happen. Because if you're reading to learn, you remember, reading is not taught after third grade.
So if you haven't gotten it by then,
If you haven't gotten it by the end of third grade, you're already behind the eight
you're
ball.
getting run over.
One of the things that I would love to do if I'm elected is to extend those students who are not reading at grade level by third grade, extend it to fifth grade. And they would have classes, just for those individuals that needed the extra help.
Okay.
I taught literacy in Memphis City Schools, Memphis Shelby County Schools, as recently as 2 years ago. And so there are young people who are not reading proficiently, but I think it needs to be system-wide, where we have a program in place where those that are not reading at grade level take it to fifth grade to make sure they're on grade level by the time they go to middle school. And so that, because we have so many that are not reading at grade level, I think now literacy is around 25%. The state average is about 40%. And we are, we're halfway there. We can't celebrate.
You shouldn't celebrate 40%.
Yeah. My goal is, if I'm elected after the first 4 years, that we're at 50. And then the next 4 years, that we're at 90. That's my goal.
And let me add this to anyone who's watching. And again, I stay out of politics. I just have people that I respect, that I like to dialogue with. But as we're continuing this conversation,
yes, sir.
And I've been in the news world now for over 30 plus years. You're not someone, and this is going to sound like a commercial. I'm just trying to be upfront.
Yes, sir.
I'm listening to you, and we're about to continue this conversation. You're not getting into this for you.
No.
You're not getting into this to make money. This is not a money position. It's not a prestige position. This is a pain in the neck position.
It is.
That you take on because you love your community and you can see that we've got major problems. Since I've said that, which it was unpaid. He didn't pay me a penny for that. Let's talk about this chronic absenteeism. And I'll tell you something that I learned years ago, because I still speak at a lot of schools. Mm-hmm. I still, even though I'm not on air anymore, I still talk about weather and science constantly.
Right.
I spoke at a school, Fred, about 5-10 years ago, and it was midway through the school year, and it was, I want to say, like first through fourth graders. And I asked the principal, how many students do you have? Mm-hmm. She goes, now or in 2 weeks? Because school had just started. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I'll have kids in the first 2 weeks who disappear and I never see them again.
That's right.
I was flabbergasted. I had no idea. How do we battle chronic absenteeism? Part
of the problem is we're not using mechanisms that we already have in place. We are not, as far as truancy is concerned, nothing. We have truancy policies on the record that are not being executed.
Nobody enforces them?
No, nobody's enforcing them. So on average, and I talked to 4 principals in District 6, and they said on average you have about half the students that are missing 1 day a week. Missing 1 day a week.
Half?
About half.
Wow.
She said about 45 to 50%. And watch this. What that equates to in a school year is 30 days. They're missing an entire month.
Right. Of a school year, by the way, that's already abbreviated.
Yeah, exactly.
Most don't go to school year round. So if you're taking a month out of...
You're taking a month. And our numbers are already deficient. And so that's where we've got to come up with it. And I don't care if it's school specific in relation to how it works for this school, but we've got to come up with a plan. When I was in high school, there was a problem with absenteeism. It wasn't this bad. So, and let me tell you how we did it, how the principal did it. And this was to keep the numbers up so it wouldn't affect the funding that the school received. Because after the absenteeism gets so bad, it starts to affect the funding in relation to the school. So what they would do, instead of having homeroom before first period, we would have homeroom after first period.
Interesting.
That would give those late students, I mean, I'm not saying that's what we want to do here, but I'm just saying this has been an ongoing problem, not to the level that where we are right now, but we've got to figure it out. That's not a plan. But that's what we had to do back then. But one of the things I know we have to do is make sure that we are enforcing those policies, and that means parents are going to have to be held responsible, because a lot of times when those kids are at home, parents are there with them.
Okay, so now you're touching me on a bruise, and I want to explore this because my wife and I, 3 kids, we were extremely involved whenever we could be. I had a crazy schedule.
Right.
Let's talk about the parents' role in this. And this is what I'm talking about now. Knows no color. I'm not talking black, white.
Of course not.
Because I have been in enough schools. I've seen dedicated parents of every shape and size in this city who pour into their children. That being said, when we have 50% that are missing at least one day a week, if not more, and we've got these terrible numbers, we can't ignore the problem that's in front of our face. Parents have to. How in the world do we motivate parents to become more involved?
Some will be motivated by saying, hey, we've got to fix this. And if you're part of that problem, you've got to fix this in your home. Some will have to be motivated by truancy laws that say if you don't have
repercussions.
Exactly. If you don't have your child in school this day or this many days in a week, then we're going to call you. We're going to come by the house and say, hey, what's going on? It has to be that doesn't get monitored, doesn't get done.
Right.
I learned that a long time ago.
Right.
And so it has to be monitored. We have to monitor better in the school system every day. It needs to be checked. It needs to be critiqued. And anybody who has missed, if you see a pattern of absenteeism, it needs to go on a red list and say, hey, we've got to get into this. We've got to find out exactly what's going on. If it's dealing with the parents, if it's the student that's ditching school after they leave home, it has to be an investigation. But that doesn't get monitored doesn't get done. And so it must be monitored, number one. Number two, we must enforce what's already on the books in terms of truancy.
Right.
And number three, we've got to get the community involved. Now, I'm a pastor, so I'm speaking from a pastoral point of view because our churches are really involved in the community.
Always.
So we have a mentorship program called SOS. And one of the things that we do is the kids at our church, we check on them. Once a month, we go there and say, hey, how's he doing grade-wise? Are they coming to school like they should? And if they're not, now we're going to the parents and say, hey, did you know this was going on with your student? So the community, the faith community, has a part in this because a percentage of those young people, they go to our churches.
Right.
So we have to get involved. So I think it's from an administrative point of view that we have to continue to make sure that things are monitored. From an administrative point of view, we have to make sure that those policies that are on the books have to be enforced. That's just like having, it's illegal to run a red light, but the law that gives you a ticket is not being enforced. That's the same thing.
You know, you're reminding me of something I was told from a man who worked with Fred Smith at FedEx when FedEx was first taking off. Fred famously said, if you can't measure it, it's not worth doing.
That's it.
If you can't, to your point, if you can't monitor it. As you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, this starts at the top where nobody's been monitoring where the money's been going.
Exactly.
Where we've got that quote that said there's a complete disregard for any kind of accountability, or we're just letting money flow out the door. I can't imagine if we're not monitoring and holding accountable our dollars at the top, how in the world are we keeping track of kids as they fall through the cracks?
And that's a sad commentary. The system has to be ameliorated from top to bottom. We need to take a look at all of the MODs, mode of operation, that we are doing with the school board and say, hey, how can we improve this? This is broken. This must be fixed. We have to go down, like we call a pull down on a computer and say, hey, this is a problem. This is how we fix it. These are some ways that we can do it. And it has to be, you cannot deal with egos. It's not about egos now. It's about the children. It's about the students. It's about if these kids aren't reading, if they can't do math at a proficient level, they're going to end up, many of them, in jail, arrested.
Yeah.
And it's partly our fault. It's time out to point fingers. We've got to point to solutions.
Okay. I've got something I want to tease for next week because we're going to do two parts here. We're going to do two parts, but I want to wrap this up for just a moment. Why do you think, and we can make this a two-parter, why do you think we've had such a long-standing problem in our schools? This is not new, and we cannot seem to keep a superintendent. I'm asking a sensitive question here.
Yes,
I know there's lots at play here. There's politics, and I have largely stayed out of that. But just for someone who's, I was in news for so long, and I saw the news cycle year after year after year. Fundamentally, what is happening where we cannot seem to write this? And that's a tricky question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. So I'm going to choose my words wisely here because I was there at not the last hiring of the president, but prior to that, I was there. And I saw the dossiers of all those individuals that were running for the position. And I just think really, folks, we got to take politics out of it. And that's...
Can Memphis do that?
I don't know. But we have to have a board that is apolitical. And now that we have political parties involved, that doesn't help.
And you're running as an independent.
Yeah, I'm running as an independent because I want to make sure that my focus is on the kids, on the students, who are the students, the teachers, and the parents, bringing that triangle of education, that triumvirate of education together. I'm not saying that Democrats can't do a good job. I'm not saying that Republicans can't do a good job. I'm speaking about me.
Right.
And I want to focus on the three priority stakeholders in relation to Memphis Shelby County Schools. And again, that's the students, the teachers, and the parents.
Okay. We're going to push pause, and we're going to do a two-parter here with my good friend here. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to give you a tease, so stick with me. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Tappan, and there are other candidates, I believe, on there as well, which is what I like about the way they did this. I think you already know what I think about him and where the esteem I have. You can go to justmymemphis.com on web or on Facebook. You can also go to tappanforschoolboard.com. And a quick reminder to you, we're accepting applications for anyone who wants to be a partner with us on the show. We'd love to hear from you if it's a good fit. We would like to start that conversation, so you can email us at thecurrenttemp@gmail.com. Now, here's my tease. What we're going to talk about on next week's episode, we're going to keep this fast-paced. I'm going to ask him, and this is the first time he's hearing this, his thoughts about this proposal for a school takeover from the state. And I'm also going to ask your thoughts and maybe ideas addressing things like the shooting we just had on Skip Day. Kids were at Shelby Farms and that tragedy. If there's something we can do to address that. Dr. Tappan, thank you for being here. I know we're going to see you again next week, and thank you guys for visiting with us.